am Julian Crevier from North Point Partners, and I'm so glad you're joining us. I've got Louis Lavoie with me from North Point Partners as well. How you doing, Louis?
I'm doing well. Good to see you guys.
So we are talking to Steve Giddens today, who is the Digital Content Director for North Point. And Steve, how are you doing?
Doing great. Look forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, we're really glad you're here, man. And the question of digital content strategy and how do we reach more people and creating pathways to engage people digitally is pretty big right now in everybody's mind. So we really appreciate you coming to talk with us today and sharing what you're learning and along the way. So thank you.
Absolutely. Glad
so one of the things that just to good for you to know, and everybody who's on this call probably will know, but everybody is coming from different contexts and cultures, and there's different sizes of churches, and some are big and small and big staff and small staff, and they're going to try to accomplish with a small team what we're doing with, maybe a big team. Maybe to you, Steve, it might feel small, but so there's a concept we talk about here at North Point called principles, practices, and preferences, and the idea being a principle applies across all contexts and cultures. A practice is, hey, how do we as leaders apply it uniquely in our context and culture, and maybe our church in this case? And then a preference is usually what we argue about, like what kind of music should we be playing? And so as leaders, I'm asking you guys who are joining us to say, all right, so when I hear Steve talk about these ideas of what they're doing digitally, I need to take away the principle and then figure out how do I apply it in our unique context and culture, because everybody's is different. So I just want to give that context for everybody. And so, Steve, if you're ready to go, I think we'll jump right into it. So thank you for joining us. And the first question really is, so kind of help give us some context. So why is digital content, why has it become such a big priority for North Point strategy these days?
No, that's a great place to jump off. And I would say for everyone listening, if you're a church leader, we all got through into the Digital Sandbox last year, not really willingly because of the pandemic. And while none of us would have wished that to happen, pretty early on in the process, I know from the top down, Andy said, hey, let's not waste this opportunity to learn what we can, to improve and to innovate. So that started some conversations, and the size of church that we are, we could fairly quickly shift from physical Sunday gatherings, our Sunday services, to online. It took a little bit of work more in our student and kids ministry, but it started conversations for us where we really had the time to step back and say, there's been a trend of digital for years now, and we have an hour on Sunday live face-to-face with people. How can we equip them outside of Sunday to grow their faith? So what could that look like? How could we leverage digital technology? And part of it was really uniquely trying to meet the moment we were in, that people are home, they're quarantining, parents all of a sudden became homeschool teachers, and that's not what they signed up for. So, everybody was struggling. And so we really wanted to try to, how do we equip people? How do we pastor them in the season? And I'll just say from the beginning, the goal is never, and since we've tried some things and developed now a team for digital content, the goal is never to replace what happens live and in person. We're still passionate about getting people in circles and in communities where they can grow together. But if you think about our lives right now, they're really intertwined between the two. Right now we're talking on a Zoom call. Earlier this morning, I had a face-to-face meeting. This weekend, we'll probably see friends or family face-to-face, but maybe talk to others through text or phone. So how can we meet culture where it is, and how can we leverage content to help people grow? So those were the questions that started and then have kind of led to some of the principles and the practices that we've deployed.
Has it connected? So I know Andy talked recently about the new strategy of Endear, Inspire, and Equip. How have you guys connected the strategy with that?
That's a great question. I would say from the highest level, the thing when we started Digital Content Team, we said we really want to champion the value of leveraging digital content for growth. And so when we think of who our customer or our end user is, it's those that are digitally unknown to us. So potential guests or potential people we would love to engage with. And then those that are currently known, so our attendees or even our volunteers and leaders. So we've thought about it in that progression. As we think about those that are digitally unknown, what we want to do is we want to create awareness to them. We want to provide digital content that is helpful for a need in their life. And if we as a church could earn trust for them, and they could think, I got a video that was really helpful for my parenting, maybe I'll take a next step. Or if it's someone in the workplace could share a business leadership principle or video with someone that they work with that church may not be on their radar currently. That's a win for us. So it's really creating awareness. That's the first category. That would be kind of the Endear the community digitally. And the community we want to reach are online. So it's meeting them where they are. The middle category would be the inspire our audience. That's our audience. So for that, we want to add value that leads to engagement for the digitally known. So those that would say, here at Northpoint's my church. This is where I attend. Some of them aren't connected with other people in, what we would say like a small group or some type of circle environment. Some aren't serving. So how could we leverage content as part of a pathway to get them to take further steps of engagement? And the final category for the equipping would be those that are part of, we would call those our core. So our volunteers, our leaders, even our group members. How can we provide intentional equipping that is helpful for them in their own spiritual growth? So as we've thought through that strategy, we've really thought what's unique about each stage, what are the needs of each stage, and what could we do to add value that leads to growth?
Yeah, Steve, you talked about creating the content that's relevant to people in the community, like you mentioned parenting and stuff about business or work related things. How does that get in front of them? How do they ever see it? How do people that aren't connected to our church or unknown, like you said, to us, how do they come across one of the videos that you create?
It's a challenge, and I mean, this is a new space for me. My background is in more adult ministries and groups. So that's been a learning for us. And one is just looking at the mediums where they are. So YouTube is obviously a popular medium to leverage, because for any of us now, if you want to know how to fix something at your house, you look up the YouTube videos, and you also look at the ones like if it's a leaky, sink. Okay, there's a 5-minute, a 12-minute, and a 20-minute. I'm going to try the 5-minute first, So it's even Absolutely. Like, what are people doing when they are online? But there's really 3 categories that we've gone to. One is Andy pretty consistently has been pushing people who've watched online. So maybe just tuning in. Hey, if you're not getting our emails, go to our website and sign up. So we made some changes to our website early on, because our website for us is it's a front door. Stats will say that most people will check out your social media or look at your website before they attend physically. And I think for all of us, that's what we do. If you are going to a new restaurant or store, or you got kids, you're checking out a pediatrician, you're going to look online and see what are the reviews, or, what's the website look like? So that makes sense that we would try to meet people there. So we've really been intentional with how we phrase things with the end user, with a potential new customer or new attendee on our website. But we've also leveraged it in the invitation to our core. For those that are more endearment friendly or endearment focused, we've been intentional in our marketing to say, invite a friend, invite a coworker, invite a neighbor, and that to just keep that language in front of our core. In the final category, we've deployed some digital paid ads in certain mediums. And so I think in the past year, we've learned a lot about that. There's still a lot for us to learn. But there's so many ways that you can target people in your local area that it almost feels a bit creepy, if I'm being honest. That there's so much they can tell. It's like, oh my gosh, other companies have done this to me, So it's like, how do we leverage it in a non-creepy way to just, endear people at our church? Because at the end of the day, we really want to help. I mean, and we believe that the message that we have, that following Jesus will make your life better, make you better at life. How do we show people that we are here to help in the season?
Okay. So you're saying in addition to just going to your website or even searching YouTube and you guys showing up in the search results, that you're actually showing up in people's news feeds as they scroll through social media and stuff like that. Okay. Gotcha. That's cool.
That's great. Some people who've watched this, they may have gotten one of those. We're like, oh, now I know how North Point appeared. But there you go. I know other churches do that too. So it's nothing new.
That's cool. So the practical, you mentioned a couple of practical things, but I love to know, like, what are some of the other practical things that you're doing for all the different areas of Endear, Inspire, and Equip? What are some video or elements or digital content elements you guys have used for those areas?
Sure. So just examples of each of those. For the Endear, so that's really trying to endear the community around us. Ultimately, we'd love to earn trust with someone who is in our local community, that they'd be willing to plan a visit or join us one Sunday. But we know if church isn't on the radar for people, that's not a decision that may be a quick decision for them. So we really want to provide help. So one of the things that we've done pretty early on last summer was, in the area that we're in, a suburban area of Atlanta, there are a lot of parents. There are a lot of parents, as we talked about earlier, became homeschool teachers, and then they went into the summer mode, and summer just looked really different last year. They couldn't have play dates, and their students couldn't get out and see their friends like they normally would in a typical summer. So we just wanted to provide some help for parents. So we put together something in the form of almost like an online digital conference. We called it Parent Summit. And the thing that was really surprising, our goal was really, we just want to add value. We want to help parents who in this season are asking for help. They need help. We all do. So we were really surprised that half of the people that subscribed for the content, so they registered to receive the content, they were unknown to us. So leveraging that content, it's been one of the more popular resources that we've used, but it endeared us, or provide at least an opportunity for endearment, because we had an email address or had a connection to a demographic of people and a group of people that we hadn't been before. So that's one of the things in the endearment space.
Yeah. Wait, so half of the people that used it were new unknown people. That's really cool.
They were new unknown people. The only thing I'll provide this learning, we didn't know last year that, the size of church that we are, that we need to ask for zip codes. So, because it was really, we saw the numbers climb. We're like, well, how many are local and how many aren't? But the current stats reflect, I know we've got other churches that track, but about 55-60% of those who are unknown to us that are consuming our content digitally are unknown or local unknown people. So
let me ask you a question. So you chose parenting as a need, I guess a felt need. How did you figure out what content you were going to begin addressing? Did you guys do a survey? What was your way to approach before? Because you sent me a video, I think, of that parent summit. Is that the one that I got? So before I show that, how did you define what content we're going to go after?
That's good. That's a great question. We've created some content, but we knew early on, if we're creating it solely on our own, we can't keep pace. And so we really wanted to, I think we felt the responsibility in the season that we're in, where the only way people can engage with us is digitally. How can we get content out? So we redeployed some content that was previous. For that content, there are some counselors that we've done events with in the past out of Nashville that they had just recorded some content. And so we just worked with them and said, how about if we use your content? We created some new content really around the needs that were surfacing. So anxiety and depression were things last summer. I mean, I know it's a topic that we all still need to continue to engage with, but with things that were going on with racial reconciliation. So there was a topic on how can parents engage with their kids. Some of those are on our YouTube, North Point Community Church YouTube channel now. So we really tried to respond to what we were seeing out there. We've done some surveys for other ones, but for that one, it was really, okay, we want to act quick. So let's talk to the parents we know. And that's how we sort of vetted the material.
That's great. Well, I'm going to try to pull up the video you share with me.
That's this year that you're showing, this year's Parent Summit.
This year's Parent Summit. So let's go here. Hopefully this works for us here. So this is the Digital Parent Summit promo video, if I'm correct here.
That's right. That's right.
Hey parents, I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Sissy Goff, and we're excited to be joining you once again for this year's Parent Summit. Together, we've been counseling kids and families for 45 years at our practice in Nashville. And one of the biggest problems we've noticed is there hasn't been a way to track your kids' emotional, social, and spiritual development. And those milestones are at the root of the reason we end up seeing a lot of the kids and families we see.
So together, we wrote a book called Are My Kids on Track?, which is a roadmap for you in helping your kids reach the 12 emotional, social, and spiritual milestones they need to reach. During Parent Summit, we'll be going through some of this content to help you care for the boys and girls in your life with a little more understanding, a little more caring, and a little more hope.
We look forward to sharing with you at this year's Parent Summit. We'll see you then.
That's great.
Okay.
So I'm in. I've got 3 daughters. So I know Louis got 2 boys, and I know you got some boys. So I think we all are like, all right, I need help because it is not easy. So that was pretty well received, I assume. Yeah.
Well, that's a little inside, sometimes as a parent, you're just like, what are the things that I really need to know? And then you go, wouldn't it be great if we could talk more about this? So there's kind of an inside advantage to getting to create the content.
Oh,
so obviously this promo was digital, obviously, and shown to people to get them interested in the summit, but the summit itself was a digital experience as well?
It is. It's currently online now. You go to northpoint.org/parent summit. You can see how to register, so you can see our marketing. So yeah, we know that parents are busy. So we just put it available. Like, you register, you get instant access to the content. You consume it anytime, anywhere on your timeline. And one of the things we've learned through creating and releasing or redeploying some content is to leverage bite-sized pieces. So all the videos, if you were to register, you would see they're probably about 7 to 14 minutes in length. So you could watch a whole section, you could watch one video, and that's what we're learning. There's a sort of window of time period that's most helpful for people. And so we're trying to capitalize on that.
Okay. So I didn't realize this is on-demand content. I thought this was...
On demand, no.
Okay. I thought this was signing up for something that happened this time and it was live or something like that, but this is on demand.
You go to the site, you register, and you get instant access, and you can watch it on your timeline.
Love that.
So the Parent Summit is a great example of an Endear the community digital content piece. What about an example of something that you're doing to kind of inspire the audience?
Yeah. Let me say, I'll give you an example of Inspire, but for Endear, if you saw that, I got a lot out of the Parent Summit, and I'm a part of what we do. So we know that if it's valuable for one of our attendees, parents, they're going to want to share it with their friends. So while it may be a strategy for endearment, it's a tool that our parents can use as well. And so that's really some of the best publicity any of us can have, is if somebody that and trusts you already, says to friends that they know who they have influence with, hey, you got to watch this. So that's part of the thinking behind it as well.
So speaking of that, are there easy ways for people to share the stuff, or is it literally they just go in and copy and paste the link and text it to somebody or something like that?
We hope they're not doing that, because then you don't get people to register so that we can, let them know about future content for parents. But so yeah, share the registration link. That's the easiest way to do it.
Got you.
The second category, the Inspire. One of the things early on too that we started just experimenting with is self-directed content. So, just asking people, just seeing what is becoming available in culture, a lot of masterclass things you can sign up for. So we looked at self-directed content, kind of a similar vein, that you go online, you sign up, and you get access to the content to complete on your own timeline. Some of them have been a little bit like a Netflix series that releases all at the same time. Some of them we've done maybe like a Disney, episode where it's like we drop one a week for a period of weeks. But we asked our attendees here at North Point, so our audience was primarily for that category, those that are part of what we do here at North Point. We asked them, do you want digital content outside of Sunday? We sent them a survey of about 5 questions, I think. And it was helpful for us to hear that they did. So there was some, relief of job security there. But we also asked them what topics seem most interesting. And so we were really encouraged that we heard consistently that spiritual growth, relationships, an overview of the Bible, emotional and mental health, dealing with anxiety, those were topics that came up consistently. So we really viewed that as our marching orders. So we had the topics that our crowd wanted. And then we looked at, okay, what do we have that maybe could be repurposed on purpose? What could we create? And I think about 5 or 6 releases at this point. We've purchased the rights to use content from other sources too, so it hasn't been all of our content. But one of the ones that has been most successful, we partnered with our campus in town, Buckhead Church, and right at the start of the pandemic, Clay Scroggs, their lead pastor, had just done a phenomenal series called Mind Traps. And it was all on these mental traps that we get ourselves in, so really a mental health. And we thought it would be interesting to take a fresh look through that post-pandemic or through the pandemic. So Clay was on board with it, and his was a 3-part, but we said, we're hearing that people want guidance on dealing with anxiety and worry. And so we created new content. We call it the Anxiety and Worry Mind Trap. So we re-recorded it all with Clay and released it. And it was great to see so many people register for that, because you know that we've all felt that to some degree this past year, some more than others, but to provide content that was really helpful in the moment. And it didn't require someone to come on our premises and be there for a certain event, but it's like, okay, you can do this, in your pajamas at home, and hopefully this will be helpful content. And we've provided next steps after each of those. So that's an example of the self-directed content that we've done.
Great.
And what's the typical length of those?
The typical length of those, they've usually been about 3 to 4 sessions. So it's kind of similar to the way we would do maybe like a Sunday sermon series.
And each session, is it the length of a sermon as well?
Each session, we've gone a little shorter than a sermon. So we've tried to keep it around 20 minutes. So that's been a goal. Some have been a little bit longer. Some have been, we've hit that mark. We're continuing to learn, even how we capture content, the pace of communicators and all. There's been so much good learning this past year.
Oh, that's cool. Well, let's look at it. You sent me an example as well of
mind traps.
Of mind traps. Let me pull that one up, and we'll watch a little promo video for one of our practical applications of inspiring the audience.
There's one thing that every single one of us have in common. We all have this powerful tool that's at our disposal each and every day. It stores information. It interprets the events that are around us. It helps us make decisions, and it keeps us from harm. This tool is our mind. But there's another side to our minds. Our minds also hold worries and suspicions and fears that develop from the thoughts that swirl around in it. And these thoughts can form mindsets that, if we're not careful, can become mind traps. These traps prevent us from experiencing life to the full. I'd like to invite you to join us for a 4-session self-guided study called Mind Traps, where we'll explore 4 common mind traps, beginning with the worry and anxiety trap. Together, we'll talk about how to break free from the mind trap that is holding us back. And so if you've adopted a mindset that could use an upgrade, join us for Mind Traps.
Oh, that's great. So you guys customize that. That's really sharp, really sharp.
Yeah, and it's, he, to Clay's credit, he already did a great series. They had a lot of the assets. So it's just, he was very gracious with us to, we cut some of the content. I mean, any of us as content creators, you spend all this time and energy, and someone, cuts significant portions out. So he was a great partner, and we got to partner with Buckhead on capturing all of that. So it was fun.
That's great.
So
what about, go ahead.
I was going to ask, practically on a website, this is self-directed and that's different from messages from Sunday. Like, how do you organize all that so that people can find that and know how to? That's a great question.
We've, the survey I mentioned earlier, we asked our attendees what was their preferred medium of getting content. And they told us our website or YouTube. They actually said that they preferred 60% preferred a video over 30% for podcasts. Because in the early days, we're like, should we do a podcast? Would a podcast would be more helpful? But at least from that survey, maybe it'd be different now if we asked. But they wanted video. So some of them we've released on our YouTube channel. We've experimented with the chats during it. And it really, I feel like one of the things we've learned through, how do we engage with people during it is we're just such an on-demand society right now that forcing people to watch at a certain time period, it's really got to fit with their lives. So most people we watch, if we release it at Monday at 8:00 p.m., you'll see a certain number then, but by, a week later, you've tripled the number because it's just people want to consume it when they want to consume it.
That's great. So I was thinking you would only have used YouTube for the Endear part for the community, but you're using YouTube also for internally for your Inspire the Audience strategy as well.
We've used it in some of them. Yeah, we're still in the process of going back and forth, and we've used our website for some and YouTube for some. So it's just varied. It depends on kind of the target audience and what we're trying to accomplish.
How about an example for the last area of engaging? Yeah,
I can give you 2 quick examples on that. One is, one of the things that through pandemic that we were just kind of taking a step back and saying, what are the practices that we would love to encourage in this season? One of them was for our core. So those that are group members would say like, no, I'm bought in with North Point, our volunteers and leaders. we really wanted them to be spending consistent time with God. And, we know that for many of us, that can be sometimes you're consistent, sometimes not so much so. So how can we encourage that? And so we began creating some reading plans that we put on YouVersion. Got access to YouVersion and just found, what are the top searches? What are people searching? And so things like anxiety and worry and marriage that came up. So we just created some YouVersion plans, reading plans that would help people, and just a really short, pretty simple video of, here are some principles for spending time with God. And then below this is a link to resources that'll just help you make it practical in your life. So a really tangible way of making faith practical. And so that's one thing that we've done. And then earlier this year, right before we were about to reopen or resume our in-person gatherings, our phased approach, Andy brought our leaders together for one night. Our volunteers had a socially distanced night for volunteers. And at that gathering, we had a little bit of worship. He talked about our plans, but he said, you can expect to hear something from us. We're going to release some digital content for you as volunteers. And this is a great chance for us as a church to reset. As we begin resuming services, we want to reset and just kind of recalibrate and talk about, this is our mission as a church. Our mission hasn't changed. Some of our methods have. So here are some things that we want to be consistent about, and really helped us all be headed in the right direction. So we did that earlier this year, and we've just this summer released some other digital content that's exclusively for volunteers and leaders, that's aimed at their own personal spiritual growth. So for us, it's just, we think there should be, certain privileges for membership into the club of volunteer and leader clubs. So how do we reward those that are taking a step out of their weekends to serve or their weeknights to serve, whether it's a group or mentoring, and add value just to their own personal spiritual growth?
That's cool. And you sent me a video for that one too. I'd love to show. I think it's Equip. We're point Equip. Let me pull up that video.
Oh, yeah. So these are the Equip resources for volunteers.
Okay, great.
Hey everybody, as someone committed to the mission and vision of our local church, we consider you one of our key stakeholders, and we think there should be certain privileges that go along with membership in our key stakeholder club. So this summer, we're offering something exclusively for you. We've created content to help you grow spiritually. It's called Equip, and it's intended to be a helpful tool in your own spiritual journey. This isn't training tied to your role as a volunteer. This is equipping for your own personal spiritual growth. As much as we value what God is doing through you, we want to encourage His continual work in you. Here's what you can expect. In June and July, we'll be releasing several new digital resources. You can choose the topic that interests you most, sign up, and receive instant access to the resource. These videos will be self-directed, so you can watch them at any time and any place. On top of this, we'll be offering digital and live huddle opportunities for you to gather with other volunteers and process the content together. These are only for volunteers, and they're totally optional. But if you want to participate in one of these gatherings, be sure to register early when you get the invite, since spaces will be limited. On behalf of the staff here at North Point Community Church, let me be the first to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for the vital role you play in helping us to inspire people to follow Jesus. We're so grateful for your service, and we hope these Equip resources will be an encouragement for your own spiritual growth.
Oh, that's great.
I think, I don't know, I know you said had such a great setup early on, Julian, that, people tuning in may have been in different locations, different size churches. And, when you see videos like this, some of these we've done in-house, some we've contracted out.
It can be overwhelming for a pastor with a single,
No, exactly. But I was raised in a really small town. So, I know, when you just think, okay, that's great for them, but what does that mean for me? And I think, sometimes it's, especially in this category of equipping your volunteers, it's just a personal touch of, you could do something on your phone. And you can point to reading plans that are already out there on YouVersion, or a study that was helpful. I know one of our churches just did a book club over the summer. And so then they met on Zoom and talked about it. So, there's a lot of resources that are already at our disposal. And I think the thing that's really so interesting, kind of leveraging the season that we're in, never has it been more available for us to invite someone to discuss digitally, because we're all used to having Zoom meetings at this point. So everybody knows how to operate a Zoom meeting, how to log on and everything. So we do have a tool at our disposal that maybe in previous years we would have gotten some pushback from some percentage of our attendees.
Thank you for that, because I know a lot of people are but I don't have your budget, I don't have your staff, and so I think that's super helpful that you recognize that. I think people appreciate that. So, question I have next is: so we started at one place with probably some assumptions and some ideas and expectations, and I imagine we've evolved or changed some things. What have we changed? What are we doing different from when we've started? How have we evolved in the process of thinking through this digitally?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say, we've learned things, anytime you learn by doing, it's learned by maybe trial and error a little bit. We've definitely, I mentioned this earlier, the length of videos, there's such great, and this is nothing. I mean, when you put something on YouTube, you have all the analytics you can want and then some behind the scenes. So, I mean, even to watch, you spend so much time watching something, you're like, oh, look, they dropped watching at this point right here. So, but you need that learning, it's kind of like when you deliver a talk and somebody gives you the feedback. We need the feedback. So we've got analytics that we're watching. I said earlier, probably around the 12 to 20 minutes is the time that's really the best to capitalize on an audience. We've also learned too about marketing, which platforms work best. If we're reaching people that are unknown to us, using a platform that they're already comfortable with, they go to YouTube. They don't think twice about it. To go to a church's website, that's a little bit more of a step. So for some of the content we've created once a quarter, we've done some digital content for business leaders. We host it on YouTube, but then at the end, we say, hey, if you want a recap of this and some personal reflective questions and team discussion questions for your team, go to this link. And that's where we introduce our church's website there. So it's just kind of a stair-step approach or to lead people there. And I would say the last thing is, I would say right now we've been kind of in a 1.0 learning and we're shifting to a 2.0. And the 2.0 for us is, how do we design pathways? None of us who create content, I know you guys create content too, you want people to be helped by it, but you want them to progress further. So what the next step that we can offer for each piece of digital content? How can we design next steps with our end users in mind? And maybe that's different next steps for different end users. A next step for parents who are disconnected to us is different than parents who are here every Sunday, or they're bought in and they're leading, they're volunteering. So how can we design customer pathways that help people determine what a next step is or offer next step opportunities? So we're currently testing things in that vein.
Have you, I guess you mentioned a few items about it, but in terms of metrics and results, would you mind sharing some of the things that you're seeing and experiencing? And then how are you, how else are you all measuring some of that? Yeah.
No, that's a great question because it's all new. It's like, well, what should our metrics be? So, I would say there's kind of the high level metrics in terms of reach and engagement. And then for each piece, it's qualitative surveys. It's more the quantitative, the analytics on YouTube and things like that, or however, whatever the medium is. But from the highest level, we've got a monthly, we call it a dashboard, in North Point world, that's a big term, dashboards. What's your dashboard look like? So it's really for each piece of digital content, thinking through those three categories. People that were previously digitally unknown, that we didn't know who they were, those who are digitally known and they're involved in some capacity at our church, and those who are digitally known, but they don't have any involvement in our church. So now that it's been about almost a year offering content, we're able to start to see patterns of that. We've seen that for our parenting and business leadership. Those have really been the top topics for those that were digitally unknown. Marriage. We thought, marriage, people would love marriage, help, or make it engaging. And that's been more received by our crowd. And so, anecdotally, it feels like, hey, if you're speaking into someone's leadership or their parenting, they may be wide open. But when you start talking to someone's marriage as the church, maybe that's just a little bit, a step too far. So we need to earn some trust there. So we're starting to watch patterns and see what we learn through that. One thing that's been really encouraging is from the YouVersion reading plans, because that's just been such a passion point for us to get people really to make it a priority of having time with God. we just hit, and again, I know numbers and all like we talked about earlier, but we hit over 100,000 completions about a month ago. So it's really cool to just see, like, not only are people clicking on what is this about, but they're actually completing a study too. So if something we've created has been a tool in the process to help them grow, that's such a win for us.
What are you working on next? What's kind of next on the plan, on the sheet, on the whiteboard? I see a whiteboard back behind you. I'm wondering what's on it.
We need to turn this way, not to reveal too much, maybe.
I love it.
No, we've got the Parent Summit right now. We're releasing some content next month for business leaders, a fantastic talk on customer experience from a woman who drives the hospitality strategy for Chick-fil-A. I mean, most of us, when you think of customer experience, you think of words like my pleasure, that Chick-fil-A say so consistently. So she has great principles. So we hope that content like that is something that would definitely be of value to our attendees, but it would be something they'd want to share and that will reach new people through that. We've got a couple other projects that are in development. We've got a pretty ambitious one that we're in the early stages of. Probably shouldn't say it, but I'll say it's just us. It's just us. But working on a script could we create a video that sort of tells the story of the Bible? So from Genesis to Revelation. So maybe later this year, we'll see. It's very early in the process. So, but most people internally don't even know that that's kind of out there. But a good friend of ours that you guys know, Billy Phoenix, is working with us on that.
That's great. I love hearing that. So you've mentioned a bunch of resources, and I'm sure people are thinking, where do I go to see some of the ideas that you created, because they want to get the principles and apply them in their context. But like, where are examples of the things that you've talked about? If people wanted to go find them, do they go to our website? What's the best place to kind of find some of the resources that we've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think our website's a great place to start. We've really, the website's on my team as well. So trying to leverage that as a digital front door and to the language that we use. If you go to our website, look under events at the top menu bar. Our events are either physical or digital now that we're back to meeting. So we do have live events and Sunday. So you can see some of our digital events that'll be releasing soon. The Parent Summit's out there. But I would say you guys, I mean, we do so much with you guys. As there's multiple people on your team that I feel like I talk to frequently. When we have something, we share it with you guys, make sure that it's in a format that you could share with other churches or partner churches. So I think you guys are such a great resource for other churches to go to, because you really have the ability of bringing other churches together and having them talk to each other and knowing what's working. So, we want to share as much as we can with you guys. And then it's great I've experienced in return where you share what other churches are doing too. That helps adapt and shape what we do.
That's great. So if folks want to get in touch with North Point Partners, Louie, what's the best way to do that? If they're curious about, hey, this is great. Because I'm sure there's some churches out there that are like, hey, I've got a big staff. We're executing on this. This is just helpful for us. But some people are like, man, I have no idea. I need help. I can't do this on my own. I just would love to talk to somebody, get some ideas, see there's content out there we can leverage. What's the best way to talk and kind of learn more, Louie?
Yeah, the best way would just be to email me, and my email address will be in the chat. But that's the fun part. I get to talk to church leaders every day about different things that they're wanting to improve or achieve and things like that. And so we have several different ways that we love to help in doing that. So yeah, just email me and we'll start a conversation and see what works for you guys for sure.
So Steve, there's a lot of information you covered, and we could probably keep going. But my last question really is, so what's one practical thing or advice that you would have for church leaders? Because this is a lot of information. Like, what's one thing they could specifically start doing in this area of digital content strategy and building digital pathways to engage people? What's a kind of a last minute walk away?
That's a great question. One thing. I think I would just say, do one thing. Just find one thing to do. I mean, it's, I think we're probably all tired of words like unprecedented at this point, but I mean, this past year has been that. So we know the world has changed in multiple ways. And, as followers of Jesus, as pastors and church leaders, we want to reach the world around us. So what's one thing you can do to be a bridge into the world that's around you? I mean, what could you ask someone? Could you do a survey? Could you leverage some content that's already been created or create some yourself? And I was thinking this morning, this verse, we've all probably heard it before, but whatever you do or say, do it as you're doing it unto the Lord. But I read it in the New Living Version, and I was just struck by this phrase. He said, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks, giving thanks to him through God the Father. And I just love that word representative. And it just made me think, when Jesus was physically on the earth, he went to the marketplace. He went to where people were. He engaged with them. And obviously, we still want to do that as a church. We still value physical proximity and being in community and serving our local community. But the space that people are now is a digital space. So how could we just, if it's another church listening, what's just one thing you can do? If it's invest in your website, or maybe invest in social media, or just think what's a way that you can meet a need for someone that's around you, but this is the space that they're in. That would be my encouragement. A long answer to a short question. But.
That's great. That's great. Super helpful. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I know a lot of people there probably feel like, hey, I'm not equipped to be the digital content director for my church. So Steve said earlier, like he was a adult ministries director at a church and kind of stepped in, and you obviously just are gifted, organized, and think strategically and built a great team. So I guess it's just encouraging, I think, folk just taking that step. So you've done a great job, and I've benefited. I think my family has, and a lot of other folks. So thank you for investing in doing what you're doing to help churches and church leaders and people around the world to connect to Jesus, man. I really appreciate your heart in this. It's been fun to see.
I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. So anytime we can help, just let us know.
Thanks. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And I hope this is helpful for you as you figure out how do you leverage digital content and strategies to draw and inspire people to follow Jesus and create pathways that they can engage more in the church. So thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later. See ya.